The Lady with the Pins. Now this was Katie's choice of title, and Katie's choice of readings, and Katie's choice of worship songs and hymns. So I'm just doing my best with what I've got, and fortunately the Lord has given me a few things to say about it. I'm going to start with a question. Are our times hard? And the answer to that is yes, they jolly well are. Of course they are. Inflation has increased food prices. And I don't know if you notice when you go around the supermarket, the discount brands are missing. Many of the discount brands are missing, so I go around the supermarkets and I see that only the premium brands are on the shelf there. If you're having, if you were having trouble feeding your family before the inflation hit, that hasn't made things any easier, has it? Fuel prices. If you need a car to get to work, you're stuck, aren't you? No doubt bus fares and train fares will be going up as well. We're supposed to be pleased because the fuel prices come down 5% over the last few weeks. Since it went up 70% in the first place, I'm not that pleased. Heating your home. So many people are worried about that now. All right, it's the middle of summer, we don't need the heating on. But we're going to, aren't we, in this country? And people are really worried. Can we heat the house and feed the family? Not even heating sometimes. If you're that poor, paying for gas or electric to run the cooker to heat the meals is going to be a problem for many people. And it seems that we hear about fresh strikes almost every day. And it's understandable really, isn't it? If you can't house and feed your family on the wages you are paying, you're going to have to take some sort of action. You can't live on air. You can't say to your employer who's not offering any increase in wages, that's fine, it's okay, we'll live in the gutter. And then I hear the 50-year-old rhetoric trotted out. Union bashing. Take away the right to strike. Didn't work, I'm talking 50 years, it didn't work for Ted Heath's government, did it? In fact, it brought his government down. That's all right. Those ideas, listen, let's dust them off and try it. I don't think that works. I think we need to find new ways of doing things. We need to look forwards. Did the people of the Old Testament, did those folk know about hard times too? Yeah, they jolly well did, didn't they? We have been talking about 6 months of low rainfall producing a drought. If you've read your Bible, 6 months is nothing, is it? Elisha prayed to end a 3-year drought. If you remember the story of Joseph, there was a 7-year drought, wasn't there? Golly, we're complaining a bit quickly there, aren't we? Famine, they knew about famine. If your crops here, wherever you lived, failed, you couldn't import from somewhere else. No, sacks of grain on the back of a camel wasn't going to happen, was it? No NGOs to step in. We're much exercised by war at the moment. They knew all about wars and invasions. Every other day, it seems, a king of Old Testament times from somewhere or another was invading one family or another and, raping, pillaging, putting to the sword, all that sort of business. Yeah. Whole of the Middle East is an earthquake zone. Think about that. We don't have earthquakes in the world. We have very small ones. You don't have to go very far to find volcanoes. You have to go to Italy or central Mediterranean, but plenty of earthquakes. Good job so many people lived in tents unless to fall on their head. Plagues! They knew about plagues. They knew about disease-type plagues. Then you've got plagues of locusts, plagues of flies, plagues of frogs. Do not mock a plague of frogs. Have you ever tried sleeping next to a frog pond? Psalm 23 puts things into perspective. The first 3 verses. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. David is telling us that the Lord is always there providing moral and spiritual aid. This is about moral and spiritual aid. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths. Verse 4. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, the valley of the shadow of death in the King James Version, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So this is the promise of physical and spiritual protection. I will fear no evil. This is the analogy of the shepherd again. The shepherd carried a rod. That's a big stick, a cudgel. And that's to deal with any animals that want to eat the sheep. And the staff, of course, you can think of it, there are various designs. Think of it as the shepherd's crook. That's to rescue the sheep when they get into trouble, because sheep are daft. And so, quite frankly, are a lot of people. And then 5 to 6. You prepare a table before me. In the presence of my enemies, you anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now that's a promise of physical support. The Lord always comes through for us. Where? At the place of his choosing, not ours. When? At the time of his choosing, not ours. But it's always in his time, and it's always in the right time, and it's always in time. How? Probably not what you expected, or possibly not what you expected, but the help will be there. And then, excuse me while I click on. Here we are. We come to our New Testament reading. And this is an example of the raising of the dead, which doesn't happen very often. That's not a joke. It doesn't happen very often. Even in all of the Bible, quite a big book, they've got an even bigger one. It doesn't happen very often. In the Old Testament, you have Elijah. He's invited into the home of a good couple who have a son, and the wife has said to the husband, let's make a room ready for Elisha. He's got an upstairs room away from the dust and the cooking smells, nice and quiet, away from the people in the street. He's got access to the roof so he can pray. So they're doing their best for Elisha, and their son dies. And Elisha feels very sorry for them. And you remember the story, he prays, he lies down on top of the boy's body and prays some more, and the boy comes back to life. Jesus, of course, even in the wider world that don't know their Bible, they know that Jesus raised the dead. Not so long ago we had the story of Lazarus. But Jesus is the Son of God. He doesn't even have to be there to do it. Do you remember the story of the little girl that dies in the house? They come to Jesus, oh, you've got to come. Quickly, the little girl's died, you can do something for her. And he said, it's done. Go back home, she's fine. They went back home, and yes, she is. This, really, this is an example from Acts, and this is Peter. The Lord can perform miracles on his own. The Lord can use other people, us, to perform miracles. His saints on earth can perform miracles. And saints, of course, is just the gospel. That's all of us as well. We're all saints. Polish your hand on the way home. But miracles are rare and always have a purpose. Now, just prior to our New Testament reading, Peter has been to Lydda, down the coastway, where he has healed a paralytic who's been paralysed in bed, unable to get out of bed for 8 years. And verse 35, so just before this, it says, all those who lived in Lydda and Sharon saw him, the healed man, and turned to the Lord. So this is the Lord building up the early church. So, in Joppa, there was a disciple named Tabitha. In Greek, her name is Dorcas. She was always doing good and helping the poor. About that time, when Peter was in Lydda, she became sick and died, and her body was washed and placed in an upstairs room. Lydda was near Joppa, so when the disciples heard that Peter was in Lydda, they sent 2 men to urge him, say, please, come at once. Peter went with them, and when he arrived, he was taken upstairs to the room. All the widows stood around him, crying and showing him the robes and other clothing that Dorcas had made whilst she was still with them. A bit of background about Joppa. Joppa, sometimes called Jaffa, and still is called Jaffa in modern Israel. It's a suburb of Tel Aviv. Was originally a Philistine city, and when the Israelites came into the Promised Land, this was one of the parts that they couldn't turf the Philistines out of. It didn't become part of Israel until the time of David. Now, David defeated the Philistines, took over Joppa, which was an important port, and in the time of David and Solomon, the port was used. Now, sometime later, we're not sure exactly when, the Philistines took over again. Then the Assyrians came along and took over from the Philistines. Then, about 400 years before the time of the New Testament, Greeks under Alexander of Macedon came, and they took over, and they ruled Joppa until the Romans came along. We hear about Joppa several times in the Old Testament. The cedars of Lebanon that built the first temple came in through Joppa. The cedars of Lebanon came in through Joppa again for the rebuilding later on. And Joppa is the port that Jonah fled from when he was trying not to do his duty. So Joppa is a cosmopolitan city. Joppa is a very rich and snooty city full of Greeks who looked down on the Romans, down their long noses at the Romans, but not too ostentatiously, because if they did, the Romans came and punched them. So this is the place. This is what it's like. Tabitha was one of the disciples, so she's already a follower of Jesus. And she's someone who does good in her community. And I'm asked sometimes, Why does God take the good people? The answer is that God eventually takes everybody, the good or the ill. But when someone who is good, someone who is close to our heart, is gathered up to God, we really take notice. People who do good to their friends, their neighbours, who do good in their community, of course, when they pass, they are noticed. Because the people who don't do any good in their neighbourhood, people who do nothing for anybody else, they pass, and frankly it's not noticed beyond their immediate circle. And Dorcas, Tabitha, is someone who has really been doing good. So he's taken up to the upstairs room, where the widows are showing the clothing that Dorcas has made for them. So obviously this is her way of doing good. Remember, in New Testament times, in ancient times, people couldn't go to a shop and buy clothing. You went to a tailor and had clothes made if you had money. You made them yourself in your own family home, possibly working on the loom to actually weave the cloth as well. And you didn't have many suits of clothes. You know, you didn't have a wardrobe full of clothes. If you were very poor, you had the clothes you stood up in. A bit wealthier, you might have had 2 or 3 tunics, maybe. If you had more than that, you were really wealthy. So this lady has been making clothes for the widows, for the poor. Widows had no support. Hence the lady with the pins, she's been pinning them up. So people sent everybody out, Peter sent everybody out of the room, he prayed, then all he had to say was, Tabitha, get up. She opened her eyes, saw Peter, sat up, he took her hand and then he called for the believers, especially the widows, and presented her to them alive. And again, it's all for a purpose, isn't it? Verse 42, this became known all over Joppa, this cosmopolitan, very rich Greek city, and many people believed in the Lord. That's the point of the miracle. That's why God gave Peter the power to do what he did. And this is what we need now. I'm not talking about miracles, raising the dead. I'm talking about we need people who will do good to their friends, to their family and to their community. That is what we need now. Lady with the pins. There's an irreverent part of me that says we need lots of ladies with pins to poke them into important people to make when they say silly things. Probably not going to happen, but we need people who can work in their community, who can provide for neighbours. If they see a friend or neighbour in trouble, if they see them needful of something, they are prepared to help. That is what we need in our community. Our community, as I discussed at the beginning, needs help. All our communities do. And as Christians, we are set here to offer that help. Remember James, faith and deeds. Faith without deeds is empty. Amen.